When a president leaves office, do they also leave behind the responsibility of representing their countries abroad, or do their actions continue to shape South Africa's image long after they've stepped down? Those are the questions that have taken center stage following former President Jacob Zuma's recent visit to India, where he was photographed with Ajay Gupta, one of the businessmen linked to the state capture scandal. The meeting had sparked political debate and prompted the Department of International Relations and Cooperation to propose new protocols that would require former heads of state to disclose details of their foreign trips, allowing government to assess any diplomatic, political or security risks before they travel. And before we unpack what these proposed changes could mean for South Africa's foreign policy and the role of former presidents, and joining us now to delve into some of the issues in relation to that, spokesperson for the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Chrispin Phiri, is joining us to explain why government believes that the new protocols are necessary. Chrispin, thank you so much for joining us. First and foremost, give us a sense of what your concerns are as a department in relation to that particular trip.
Thank you very much. I think we need to look at this a bit more broadly than just what we saw happening in India. If you recall, earlier in the year, there was a visit to Morocco, where the former president was there with the South African insignia, the flag, the biggest symbol we have of who we are, and essentially articulated a foreign policy position that is very, very, very far from what our foreign policy position is on Western Sahara. And then we also saw an incident in Uganda as well, where certain pronouncements were made with the head of state of Uganda, which created an impression that this is the view of the South African people, which it's not. Former President Zuma doesn't represent, at least in an official capacity, doesn't offer that type of representation at that level. And then lastly, what we saw in India as well. So all of these incidences taken together in totality require us to think about what then do we do where we see our foreign policy being undermined, but also all of this happening at the facilitation of the state itself. Yeah.
Some people say that the rules have always been open-ended up until now. Is that perhaps not enough, perhaps to sort of, inform us about that particular behavior from former President Jacob Zuma?
Well, the open-endedness of the rules, I think, is a function of the way things worked at that particular time. I think now we're in a different position where you have a former head of state who is in active politics as well, conducting foreign visits. So that is a new peculiarity that we have to look at and understand.
So what are the proposals that you've put forward? I believe they still have to be looked at by Parliament as well.
Yes, we've put them forward to Parliament because one of the responsibilities of Parliament is the Remuneration Act, which also contains the privileges of former presidents. So maybe Parliament may want to look at how it looks at that question of how privileges are afforded to a former president who is active still in politics. Then the other recommendations then go to protocol in the presidency, because they are the ones who would facilitate an instruction for us to ensure that the former president gets protocol services. And perhaps it would be opportune for us to look at how that type of instruction takes place in this particular context as well, and what the requirements are for us to offer at least the full bouquet of protocol services to a particular head of state.
Just before I let you go, Chrispin, have you perhaps as a department got in the side of former President Jacob Zuma just to get his sense on this issue?
No, that wouldn't be within our realm. We get an instruction from the presidency to facilitate a particular head of state, and then that's what would happen. But where we have identified the loopholes, we also would then rely on the presidency's guidance on how to close over those loopholes. If that means consulting the former president, I think that's a decision that they would consider.
Well, thank you very much for your time. That is DIRCO spokesperson, that is Chrispin Phiri, there talking to us about this issue that has actually prompted new regulations to be proposed by DIRCO.